Welcome back to the channel, everyone. My name is Joe Buskens. This is our family's boat shop. This is episode 10 of our hardtop build. We're building a custom hardtop for our 29-foot center console that we run in our family's charter business. And since you guys were here last at episode 9, we sprayed the gel coat and got one layer of 1 ounce CSM applied to our mold. But since then, we have actually added one more layer of a 1708 biaxial here to our mold, and we've added 2 layers of 1 ounce CSM around the perimeter to kind of beef things up. And there are several different materials you could possibly go with. They make scored foams, different kind of cores. Kind of one of those things that just based on experience, we know that a 3/4 inch core, this is made by a company called Airex. It's a 6.6 pound density. It's got some flex to it, but really, really good compression strength. And that is what we're going with. Matter of fact, y'all follow me, I'll kind of show you the cutout piece here. We've got a very nice, already cut to fit. We've beveled and radiused the edges. We've test fit it inside of our mold. And I thought I might discuss a little bit about some of the prep, like to get to that piece. Stuff's not cheap. It's around 200 bucks a sheet or so. And to maybe save yourself some drama in fitting that, a lot of times what we will do in our family's boat shop is use an inexpensive, like a home type insulation. You can pick this up at the big box stores. It's about 20-25 bucks a sheet or so. And if you make a mistake on cutting or fitting that, it's not as big a deal as it would be if you messed up a expensive sheet of 3/4 density Airex foam core. So that's what I did. I basically used our plug to trace a pattern, transferred the pattern to that piece, and now we are actually ready to bond that piece into our mold. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to use one layer of 1 ounce CSM, and we are going to wet it out very thoroughly. Now, you could mix up a putty. There are different putties that are even pre-made that you can get in a 5-gallon bucket. But in my opinion, the 1 ounce mat is going to add more strength than a putty would add. And I already have this material, and it works good. Now, you're also going to want a selection. I like a standard, just a standard brick, like something you would get at your Home Depot or Lowe's. And we will kind of distribute those over this sheet once we have gotten the core bedded down in the wet mat. But first, we're gonna have to mix up some resin. So you folks come over here with me, where once again, we are using the vinyl ester resin from Fiberglass Warehouse. And again, if you folks are interested in using this same material, Fiberglass Warehouse is offering a discount code for Fish Bump TV viewers there. So y'all be sure to take advantage of that. It'll definitely help save you some money. So we've got right at 1 quart or just shy of, probably about 30 ounces or so. And today it is quite warm, but we still need a really nice long working time. So I'm going to go right at the 10 cc mark or so. And this is your MEKP, or methyl ethyl ketone peroxide. And a good mix. You folks have seen me mix this before, but I like the dyed catalyst, and that way you can really see when you've gotten a good mix going on. Now, you don't have to do that, but it really, really helps. You can kind of see for sure when you have gotten a 100% mix. Now, this is a pretty important step, is priming this foam core before we get ready to apply it into the mold. I like a large roller if possible, and I'm not trying to get a massive amount of resin on here. I'm just trying to get some. I'm trying to just seal that foam a little bit. Otherwise, you'll have off-gassing, and it can create an issue there. And it will soak up a surprising amount of resin. But if you skip this step, you may have real problems. And be sure to get those edges a bit. Working fast is one of those things today too. We're trying to move right along. We actually had a fishing charter all morning, and now we are in the afternoon, the second shift. You notice I'm not trying to just stack it on there like crazy. I'm just trying to get a nice, even coat. This is very important when you're going to be bonding any kind of foam or core, in my opinion. All right, so we have finished it out, folks. Just a light coat of resin over that whole panel prior to us starting laminating. But I want to show you a cool little tool that might save you some time and effort. Yesterday when we fiberglass this, sometimes when the 1708 cures and when you use a roller, you're going to have little ridges and burrs. And if you've never used just kind of a paint scraper, this came from Lowe's if I'm not mistaken, in lieu of sandpaper, this thing, you can hold it down and you just draw it towards you. And we did all of this surface prep with that paint scraper. It's going to be in the paint section, like I said, at Lowe's or Home Depot. And you just basically hold it down and draw it towards you, and it'll make shavings, and it will save you a ton of time and energy. That'll work with epoxy as well. So we've got a little bit more resin mixed up. While that is starting to tack off on the foam core, we are going to go ahead and start applying a good base coat here. I've had a few questions about half lapping, like folding the mat back on itself or the biaxial back on itself when we're doing these fitted pieces, and it works really good. It might look like it would stick to itself when you folded it back, but it doesn't, and it keeps your positioning perfect. Otherwise, sometimes this material will move around. And once you've wet underneath it, if you try to place it while it's wet, it can be pretty tricky. So we've got a primer coat of resin down. We've already torn our piece of mat, which we used our actual foam core, took it over to our cutting table, and we just tore it out that way. And it's a perfect, you're gonna get a perfect fit. And we also put an arrow on here for the orientation to be sure it's pointed the right direction. Now what I'm gonna do is just go ahead and pull this back again halfway back, and we can resin coat the other side, and that way we know for a certainty that this piece is going to go right where it's supposed to go. And again, we got to be moving along at a pretty good clip, but you don't want to panic. You don't want to skip steps. Important to get some right over here in these corners. You want to be sure we're getting it all the way around. That definitely improves the quality of the job. All right. And see, we can come right back. Just super easy. Just like so. Perfect. Stuff doesn't shift around and move around on us. Stays right where you need it. Now is a good time to tell everyone thank you for watching the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, now is a good time to do so. Like, share, comment, any other social media platform that you might have that you would be willing to share our information with would be greatly appreciated. We want to do more of this, and we can't do it without y'all's support. And I just want you to know how much it means to me. So thank you guys so much. So we have wet out our mat, and we are putting an extra heavy coat of resin on our core. We came back with almost a full quart worth of vinyl ester, because we really want to be sure we get a good bond. But you can see we've got this prepped and ready, and we've got to get this stuck together while it is still wet. So it's going to require two people. We're going to put the camera down for a second. We're going to get this piece of core, going to flip it right over and bed it. So check it out. Look at all these bricks we laid out. Nice and uniform, got even distribution. And this is what you're looking for. This kind of stuff coming tight. See how you got resin oozing out almost every one of those little pores? And what we're doing is, before this kind of starts to kick or get thick, you want to brush that down, because if you don't, you are going to have a lot of work ahead of you. And this foam kind of needs a resin coat anyway, so this is just kind of a start. Now, we also went around the perimeter of this. I mixed up a little bit of resin in a cup and kind of pinched it where you can get a little funnel. And look right down in here in this gap, I poured some in there. It's not completely full, but I just wanted to be sure once we got the bricks. And one other interesting note is, when we're laying the bricks, we started in the middle and then we kind of work our way out. That way, if there's any air in the middle, it kind of progresses out toward the edges. And I'm going to sit here and kind of babysit this for a little while, because the bricks themselves, if you leave them overnight, you're going to come back the next morning and the bricks are going to be stuck to your core. So what I like to do is, just periodically through the day, as we're sitting here, we'll kind of break the bond. I'll move these around a little bit, and we'll do it real systematically, like I'll do every brick. And as it starts to gel, like as soon as this gets thick, it doesn't even have to be hard or fully cured, but it will hang on to this core, and you don't have to worry about it coming up at that point. All right, folks, so that material has cured. You can see now we've removed all of the bricks. We brushed a coat of resin on there to seal that foam, and we've actually moved forward now with putting in a real nice bead of a thickened vinyl ester. You can see right down in there where we've already tooled that in there. Now, a little time has passed. We actually had a little flurry of fishing charters, and I had to wait several days. It's important to note that with the vinyl ester, even with the laminating resin, after a few days, it is a real good idea to come back. And you'll notice I took a little sanding block and put a good scuff on that surface there to kind of give it some bite and give it some texture. Of course, y'all have seen me 100 times use these little 3M Velcro blocks, and I used a piece of 40 grit, pretty aggressive 40 grit sandpaper to scuff it up. Now, what I'm using to do the little bead around the perimeter to fill that little gap is some of the vinyl ester resin, but we're thickening it with a colloidal silica and a little bit of the microfibers. Now, even though these are from West Systems, which is generally thought of as an epoxy, these work just fine, these two in particular. Now, when if you got a big project to help maybe save you guys some money, these are super convenient. But if you're doing it at an industrial level like we are, that is a 10-pound bag of the fumed or colloidal silica, and that is called Aerosil. There you go, Aerosil. You can buy that at a lot of your big bulk suppliers. So that's kind of something good to keep in mind. Now, anytime you're dealing with this stuff, though, really important to wear a good respirator. We've already mixed everything up, and just for the sake of audio, we're not making any dust right now. We've already got the putty made, and that is the consistency we're looking for. Now, I have found that a little paddle mixer, the same mixer that we use for doing our gel coat, works quite well for making up these putties. I would recommend using that. Just remember, you want to wear a mask or maybe have a little vacuum going. And this kind of material, we're going back and using just the MEKP 925, but I'm using some dyed, some red ones. And you'll notice I made a little divot in there. Pour, about 2% or so. And I had some comments about the MEKP, or methyl ethyl ketone peroxide. Eye protection, real good idea. Gloves, obviously you do not want it on your skin. It's a pretty corrosive product, and it's no bueno. You don't really want it in your personal space too much. So wear some good PPE. But there's no reason to be terrified of the stuff. Just take precautions. And you'll notice that red really helps that material change colors. You can tell when there's a good mix. Little flexible putty blade there just to turn it and roll it. All right, come over here, folks. I'm gonna show you. Now we got a pretty good gap right in there. I typically like to get some on the blade and just start working my way around. Just nice and uniform. Pretty satisfying. Actually, this is something I've always kind of enjoyed. And again, you guys out there that do maybe some sheetrock or auto body work, this ought to be a natural fit for you, for sure. I try to work in manageable size batches as well. You don't want to work too much. Somebody's airing out their motorcycle over there on the other street over. Sounds pretty good. All right, so what I'm gonna do now, we got a little extra material. I like to bend that little blade in there and tool this right around. Sometimes it takes more than one pass, and that's okay. I'm gonna come back the other direction. Sometimes you've got to make more than one pass to get it the way you want it. Come back in here and clean some of that excess up. That looks pretty good. The more you do it, the better you're gonna get at it. It doesn't have to be totally full. We're probably gonna come back and do a little bit of fairing and shaping. Need a little bit more right in there. I think you folks kind of get the idea. Sometimes it requires more than one pass. It can be some of the thicker fills. Sometimes it can be a little tricky to get enough in there in one pass, and you may have to make 2 or 3 runs at it. All right, I like that pretty good, and we've got a little bit more left. Sure do appreciate you folks tuning into the channel. It means a lot to me. It's a busy time of the year for us, and we're really trying to balance doing our fishing trips and making content. I slowed down a little bit on my top build because we had quite a few days in a row of really pretty weather, and the fish were biting and people wanted to go, so now's the season for it. But fishing day after day makes me realize how important the top is. All right, I think that looks quite nice. Quite nice. This is one of those things, the more you do it, and remember, if you got a big project, go to one of your big suppliers, get a 10-pound bag of the Aerosil, Cabasil, very, very similar. Just remember, it is very light, airborne very easily, plenty of ventilation, a good respirator like the big 3M one that we wear. And I'm gonna go ahead and finish this bead out all the way around the perimeter. We're gonna get ready for the last 2 layers of glass to finish this thing out. We got all of our filling done. Y'all check out right down in there. Real nice, clean and smooth radius. Now, if you remember, we made that using some of our vinyl ester laminating resin and a little bit of the 406 and the 403, and took it to just a nice, kind of that creamy peanut butter consistency. And I've had some questions here lately. Yes, you can use like polyester resin, vinyl ester resin, epoxy to make, matter of fact, we got a video here on the channel about making a peanut butter as an adhesive or a filler. And then once that cured for a couple hours, I came back with our little 3M block and some 40 grit and just scuffed it up and cleaned things up a bit. But we're getting ready to laminate. And so I've got 1 layer of 1708 biaxial. We've already kind of fit it to this piece. And as y'all have seen in previous videos, I kind of halved it back on itself. And we're getting ready to mix up some resin. So I went ahead and poured up nearly a full quart of our vinyl ester. And we're using the Norox, the MEKP 925, and about 12 cc's. Now you guys do want some eye protection when dealing with the MEKP, and obviously like a good respirator or something. We've got a fan running in the background today to kind of help pull things through the shop. And I do like using that dyed catalyst. That way you can see when you've got a good mix. Oh yeah, starting to look good. Good, thorough. You got to move along. We are in temperatures in the low 90s right now. So remember, as the temperature rises, you can reduce the amount of catalyst, but I don't recommend going below about 0.75%. Generally, the zone I like to be in is about, on the low end, about 10 cc's per quart. We got two different roller sizes. We got a big one for covering a lot of area, and then we got the smaller one for more of the detail work. And we are using, matter of fact, maybe we can zoom in there, the Airex, the T92. I hope you folks can see that. Kind of a neat, that's a 3/4 inch. It's a 6.6 pound density foam core. See, Airex T92, and it's got little perforations in it that work really good to help air come up through. But I wanted to show you folks, if you live in an area that's hard to get sheet foam shipped to you, because this is a 4x8 like a sheet of plywood, you can contact the folks at Fiberglass Warehouse. This is a real unique foam that they can actually roll up and ship to you, and that is a Divinycell, but it's in a scored or a veiled sheet. So it'll take a contour in different shapes, but they can roll it up and ship it to you. So that's kind of an option for you folks maybe that live somewhere where it's hard to find the exact same materials that we are using. All right. Let's see if we can get. And as always, I like to run some resin under my material first, if possible. Get a good base coat. Roll in there. Kind of like your primer coat. Good idea to get some resin under your glass. Good even distribution too. You don't want big puddles and ponds of this material. Just a nice even coat will work for you. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna get my cameraman to get over there on one side, and we're gonna grab a corner and we're gonna just fold this back on itself. This is a real good way of keeping everything nice and even. Kind of work from the middle out, try to get some of those wrinkles. Working with gloves is a real good idea. I never recommend working barehanded. Just a light touch. Oh yeah, that's looking good. Tell you what, fiberglass, if you've never worked with it, can be a little maybe intimidating, but don't let it intimidate you. It's definitely just a few basic foundational principles handling this stuff. Don't get in a big rush. Do your research, take your time. Prep is a big deal. Making sure you have all your materials cut and laid out, things prepped and ready. All right, that looks really good. Now I'm gonna fold this back on itself. It's nice sometimes having a helper to do this. If you had a helper right now, now would be the time they could go ahead and start another batch for you. Now I have had some questions too about building a top like this. Obviously we are boat builders and I plan on building more than one of these tops, and that's why we built a mold for it. But you certainly could do this in what we call a one-off. So basically, instead of building a plug then a mold, you would just go straight to building the part. And there's certainly principles you could apply from what we're doing with building this. You could adapt, and there's a good chance we'll make a video in the future where we build just a one-off part and skip the whole plug and mold building process. All right, I'm gonna fold this right back on itself. There we go. See, we're working out from the middle. Sometimes you can lift and pull a little bit, get things to work your way. And honestly, we were talking about when you can do this stuff. If you can work in the spring or the fall when temperatures are kind of moderate, fiberglass doesn't work real great when it's really, really cold. And honestly, when it's really, really hot, it can be challenging as well. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. All right, I like it. Looking good. Want to get this roller really nice and cleaned out and get our pan clean between coats, because if you don't, you will get some jelly in there, and that's not good. You could even have 2 or 3 quarts already poured up. Obviously, that would save a little bit of time for you. Again, about 12 cc seems to be working for the temps we're at right now. do appreciate you folks taking the time to watch the channel. I know you have a lot of ways you could spend your time, and I'm honored that you folks are spending time here with us. We've got some cool projects in the future. As y'all know, we're busy fishing right now. That's one reason our video production is a little challenging right now, so y'all bear with us. We are now, one thing you can do as well to speed up things, sometimes you can just pour that material out, kind of expedite the wet out process a little. Time is money, man. You want to move, but do it right, do it well. The more you do this kind of work, the better you're going to get, the faster you're going to get. There's a learning curve to it. I've only been doing this about 40 years. I grew up in this shop, and I've been out here since I was a boy. Started just doing little simple small jobs with my dad, and kind of just as a helper. In our family, we called your helper a gopher, because you go for this and go for that. A lot of guys in the trades, though, they came up working with their dad, or maybe their grandpa or an uncle, somebody that was a tradesman or a craftsman. Good way to learn. And I'm happy to share what we do. I tell you, there aren't many guys that do what we do anymore. There aren't many boat builders, guys that can draw a boat and build it from scratch. Happy to share with you folks what we have learned down through the years with our family. All right, you see how quickly we were able to get that pan of resin dispensed. Clean our pan. We're gonna try again. Now some folks, you know, you start in the middle and kind of work your way out, kind of work the air out of there. Sometimes I will jump around a little bit, but generally that is good if you can start in the middle and work your way out. Got our roller nice and dry. Just like that, we're through another batch. It's amazing how much material you can roll through. See, if you guys have a friend or a son or a daughter, they could be mixing batches up. Obviously, again, though, good safety gear, plenty of airflow. Want to be careful. All of this stuff is potentially dangerous if you don't handle it properly. Go. We use a little disposable paint tray liners from our local Lowe's. Works really good to keep your paint trays and pans in good working order. Anything you can find to help you work more efficiently, cleaner, that's a good thing. get some resin on everything. And obviously we started up here at the front first, so now I want to be sure to jump back here and take care of what we saturated first as we move along, because you would hate for this to start to kick or cure on you before you got it down fully. That's where working during the cooler months really helps. It gives you a little more time to work. Get our trusty scissors. These actually came from our Lowe's and Home Depot. Nothing super exotic. Trim a little bit of that excess there. That'll help. This material to lay down a little better. Take our brush now and come work these corners. You can see we can do a little bit of dabbing and get some of those air bubbles and some of those wrinkles. Hard to beat a brush sometimes for contours and shapes. Just want to be sure you got enough resin so the material is fully saturated. This top might be a little bit overkill, probably a little on the heavy duty side, but we run a lot of trips and we routinely have people hanging on to this top as you're running. They'll use it kind of as a grab bar and such, and I'd rather have it be a little overbuilt than underbuilt. All the 29, it really is a work boat. It helps us earn a living down here. All right, you can see now that we've trimmed this is going to be more inclined to lay down nice for us. We don't have that edge or that extra material laying over the outer side and creating what my dad would call a pucker with a P. Yep. Very nice. All right, I think we are almost ready for another batch, and we'll be sure our roller is clear. All right. And while we're trimming, I think we will go ahead and take care of this little bit of excess. Just be sure your fingers are out of the way. These heavy duty shears are not a toy for sure. You don't want to get in front of them with your fingers, your digits. You'll end up with an owie. Here we go. Moving moving right along. And I'm gonna come over in here before this gets too far along and do a little bit of dabbing. And there's nothing wrong with having a helper. I'm telling you folks, having someone here just mixing batches and handing you things. I've done this a lot, probably as much as anyone you'll ever meet that's my age, and had a lot of experience with it, and still sometimes it'll get ahead of you if you don't have your ducks in a row, as they say, have everything kind of lined up. You'll find yourself behind the curve. That's looking nice though. I like it. Coming up. Normally we have a roll around table, but I've got my plug kind of set up on it and I need to clear the plug off of there, I guess, but I've been using it kind of as a catch-all. About 12 cc's. Very important, I think, to be accurate. Y'all notice every time I'm pouring up the same amount using these little disposable popcorn cups and same amount of catalyst. Not a bad idea even to keep notes when you're doing this at home, kind of record your shop temperatures, the specific resin you're using, and even the speed that you work. You may work faster or slower than I do, and if that's the case, you're going to want to adjust. You're going to want to adjust your catalyst to what works best for you. All right, I'm going to come in here now and hit those inside edges with this big roller, because I can get more material on there quickly. Time is money. This top ought to be very strong and relatively lightweight. I'm sure, again, we probably could have built it a little bit lighter if you had a real specific application, but if I had somebody, full-grown individual, want to grab onto this thing and be confident they're not going to hurt it, I wanted to be sure we were plenty heavy duty. Sometimes a brush, again, in these corners is hard to beat for just working that material back and forth. You can do this with the biaxial glass. It doesn't work that great with like a chop strand mat. That will kind of gum up on you. Always looking for air bubbles. We do not want that. We don't want glass fibers that are visibly white, that are unsaturated. That would be a bad thing. These edges see a lot of abuse there. We've been catching a lot of nice fish, y'all. We tried to get a little bit of footage this week, but it's challenging sometimes when you're running a charter and getting some good content. I'm hoping that things slow down a little and we can maybe do a family trip and just take maybe my brother and my son, get out there and get some footage of the 29 in operation. Yeah, you can see there's a few bubbles, like right here, for example. Maybe the camera will catch them right in there. Maybe zoom right in. You can see there's a little white spot right there, and it just disappeared. Just takes a little touch. I like to do stuff real methodically too when you're doing this. You know, start at one side and work yourself around nice and methodically. It may look like I'm jumping around a lot, but I'm usually got kind of a search pattern. See, we got a white, kind of a light area right in here. You can see we're undersaturated right in that zone. And come back now that we got everything in place and give it a little more resin. You want the glass to go transparent, but you do not want it over saturated where there's just big puddles of resin standing, but you don't want dry fibers, unsaturated fibers. That would be bad also. Now we got our little fin roller, our little bubble buster there. That is a handy dandy. We're gonna kind of just start in the middle and work our way out. Kind of doing a little half lap on each pass, working from the middle out. That'll help work any air out of there and kind of level things up a little bit. You can kind of hear it there coming out of there. These are relatively inexpensive little tools, and they will definitely elevate the quality of your fiberglass work. Now sometimes the resin will start to get a little sticky, and if during the process of trying to roll out with your bubble buster, the resin is trying to stick to the roller, one little trick I have found is you can take a little squeeze bottle of acetone, and y'all know we always keep an acetone bucket there, and sometimes you can do a little rinse some of the sticky resin off, and that'll kind of give you another minute or two that you can roll without the resin sticking to your roller. You can kind of speed up a little bit when you've done that. Man, that is looking right. Very nice. Very nice, very nice. I like it. All right, we're going with our little bubble buster back in our acetone bucket. Always good too when resin's sitting, if it's in a pan and it's spread out, it's gonna give you a longer working life. If you put it in a cup, the more mass is concentrated, generates heat. The heat accelerates the cure, you're gonna have a shorter life. So if you can put it in a pan and kind of spread it out. All right, folks, that is about what we're looking for when it comes to our 1708 layup. I may have to get my cameraman to pause for a moment and help me get our layer of mat on here. This thing will be structurally complete here in a minute. All right, here we go with our layer of 1 ounce CSM. And what I'm trying to do right now is go ahead and get this little bit of resin out of this pan. And we're kind of focusing on the front half of this piece because that's what I started on and that's what's going to cure first. We will do a little bit of trimming and adjusting, and this is just as easy as using your hand to tear some of that excess. That'll allow it to fall into place a little easier. Now we're trying not to disturb the glass underneath if possible. Again, I've had a lot of practice at this, folks, so it may take you a minute to get the technique exactly the same, but there's nothing wrong with using your hands to tuck it into place. Sometimes you'll get the biaxial folded down a little bit there, which is not uncommon. Again, just use your hands, tuck it in. You can also wear 2 gloves while you're doing this, and at this point I could just shed 1 pair of gloves, but I'm actually going to just put a fresh set on so I can work a little better. But you can wear 2 pairs, and when your hands get gummed up you can just peel one off a little easier, because sometimes when it's hot, gloved hands are sweaty and it can be tricky to get another set of gloves back on. Okay, here we go, and yet another batch. And a lot of this is kind of rinse, wash, repeat type stuff. I mean, I know sometimes what we're doing may seem a little repetitive, but the feedback from everybody has been positive in that a lot of you folks like seeing the actual full process rather than it chopped down into a 10-minute video, and you go into it thinking you're going to be able to build something like this in a day or two, when in reality it could take a week or two to do something like what we're doing, of continuous effort. Again, for the sake of time, I'm going to pour a little material out here. This will help me work a little faster. And it'll get some of that mass out of the pan. Remember, the more material you have sitting, the faster it's going to cure. So you really want to try to get this stuff spread out as quickly as possible, or else you'll find yourself with a mess. And that's not good. We don't want a mess. We want nice, clean, quality work. The CSM we're adding here, it does add a little bit of strength, but it's mostly for a nicer cosmetic finish. Otherwise, you've got that real strong kind of a geometric pattern that my boat, the way we're finished out, everything's finished out with CSM, and it kind of gives you a nicer, just a uniform pattern or texture that just looks nice to the eye and feels good to the hand. So that's what I like, to try to have everything come out looking the same if possible. And again, you want it saturated, but you don't want it over saturated. Got some little air bubbles right up in the corner again, and it is in many cases hard to beat a brush. Again, my dad used to call this dabbing. A little dab will do ya. Somebody commented the other day that that saying is apparently from an old ad. Back in the day, my dad used to say that, and I never knew where it came from, but apparently it was some kind of a hair care product. A little dab will do ya. Maybe that'll bring back some memories for some of you folks watching. Sure is going to be a nice addition to the boat. Very good. Very good. Alright, let's see here if we can tuck this in and get ready. Now, we don't want to disturb the 1708 if we can help it. I am going to tear that corner a little bit. That'll help it lay in there. Folks, remember, a lot of the materials we're using, we have links below the video's description. So if you kind of scroll down below the video's description there, and there are some discount codes if you buy from Fiberglass Warehouse. Just remember Fish Bump TV, there's a discount code there. And then any of the tools we buy, a lot of the stuff is on Amazon, and that actually helps the channel when you guys and gals buy through the links there on our under the description. So we'll be sure to have all this stuff and do a good job of it. And as always, if you have any questions, let me know. I've tried to respond to as many comments as I can. Right now it can be a little challenging to do that. Go ahead and get a little bit here in the corner so that can be soaking. And y'all notice that lately we're using a lot of the vinyl ester. There's so many advantages to the vinyl ester resin as far as its strength and its waterproofing Has a lot of the great characteristics that epoxy has, but it's okay to fiberglass over vinyl ester. It has a styrene as a solvent, and it works just fine with gel coat going over that. A lot of people want to do repairs with epoxy, but then they find out that you can run into some real issues with gel coat not bonding to epoxy very well, or sometimes not at all. And we've got some videos kind of talking about that. Now I do have a product in the pipeline. I've got a new product that's supposed to be like a barrier coat that if you already done repair with epoxy and you can't go back and change it, there's some materials out there that might help you be able to use gel coat as a finish coat. And we're gonna be doing some testing, because that seems to be something I get a lot of questions on, that topic. Okay, remember to clean your brush out really good. Want to make sure our pan is good between coats. If you ever notice there to start to be any little bits of jelly, or your roller gets hard, at that point you would just want to stop and start all over again. Brand new roller, brand new pan, because otherwise you'll get little bits of jellified resin in your subsequent batches, and that is not good. All right, I believe one more batch might do it. It's gonna be close. Want to get all we can. We don't want to waste any of this stuff. Now notice we got a smaller amount here, so we need to reduce our catalyst. That's not going to be a full quart. That looks like about maybe 5/8, 3/4. So we're going to drop down below 10 cc's, probably about 7 or 8 or so. Whatever is the least saturated is what I start with. We'll work our way around, get a little bit of resin on everything, and it'll kind of just meld in there. We want this to be strong, but again, I'm trying not to go overly saturated, because weight is a factor on this as well. That's looking really nice. I think that little handful of resin is going to do it. Good to have someone else looking while you're doing this. Second set of eyes, sometimes they will see something you may have missed. There's some little bubbles you can see, like right in there, for example. Maybe my cameraman can come along. There you go, you can see right in there. And again, that's where just being real systematic. Start at one side, work your way around real methodically. Attention to detail. This isn't rocket science. This is work that can be done by most anyone if you just take your time, have some attention to detail, do your research, follow the steps. You don't want to skip around either. That's one of those things. It's kind of like baking, for example. Kind of have to follow the recipe pretty accurately, or you can end up with results that you're not happy with. Fiberglass is that way. It needs to be done. I'm going to go around this one more time. You can see, just nice and easy. Didn't even use my small roller today. I try not to use, I'll use it if I need it, but don't want to use up any more material than you have to. That would just be one more thing to throw away or clean up. I think that looks very nice. We're just going to go over this nice and easy over every surface once again. Make sure we didn't miss. Now it's time for a little hit with the little fin roller. Once again, just nice and easy. Sometimes you'll get little areas that want to pull up when you hit it with the fin roller. That's kind of an indication that your glass may be starting to tack off or cure a little. Now, one thing to remember with the vinyl ester though, even though this is a laminating resin, it's going to stay tacky for a few days. But if it's had to sit for more than a couple days, I would recommend sanding this, put a scuff on it. You can kind of tell if you go to sanding it and there aren't any little globs that form. If it's not tacky at all, then it's definitely needs to be sanded. If you go to sand it and it's making a bunch of globs in the sandpaper, then you're probably okay to laminate. I kind of like to sand everything a little bit just to be on the safe side anyway when I'm doing stuff. Prep work, you can see right there, see how some of the hairs are starting to pick up a little. That kind of is indicating that this material is getting close to wanting to kick. And remember, you can take your roller and just jog it or rinse it a little bit, and a lot of times that will help. Like you see, there's a little burr right there. Woo! All right. That was pretty intense. I had to keep moving to get that done. I think though, we're probably at a stopping point. Structurally, she is now built. It's going to be a matter of, we're going to get to a point where we're going to trim the edges and get ready to gel coat the underside. But I hope y'all enjoyed that episode. If you did, please, again, remember, like, share, comment, subscribe. Any other social media platforms that you can share us on. We would love to grow the channel. Can't do it without y'all's support and help. So again, thank you very much. Captain Joe here, Island Marine Charters, Fish Bump TV. As always, my fantastic cameraman working hard behind the scenes. And we'll catch you guys next time out.